Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show alongside Andrew Simonson. I am Alec Etheridge, and we're excited to have you on board for another edition of the Shelby County High School Football Show. And Andrew, already 1 week in the books, and we build up all offseason for the excitement looking forward to week 1. That week's behind us. Now we go into week 2, and we're only a week away from region play, so there's more excitement continuing to build. But this week 2 is going to be a big week. We've got 12 games taking place this Friday night, and we've got some big matchups. We've got a nationally ranked matchup when you look at Thompson. We've got the game of the week right here at Spain Park as they welcome Hoover to town, a crosstown rivalry battle there between those two, and plenty of other excitement ahead on week 2 of the schedule.
Absolutely. When we started looking at the schedule over the summer, we circled this week in our calendar because of so many marquee matchups involving so many of our teams. This is really going to be where we figure out what these teams are made of and how they're going to look coming into region play.
Yeah, I mean, you got a county battle in Oak Mountain, Pelham as well, just down the road from here at Spain Park. But when you have a nationally ranked battle and you're choosing another game that's going to be game of the week, it talks about the importance of this Spain Park Hoover matchup, and you'll hear a little bit more about that here in just a minute, but obviously a lot to build up to from last year's game and what Spain Park was able to do in that one a year ago. But we got plenty of excitement to talk about on this week's show, and then, of course, at the end of the show, the return of our SCR Stars of the Week. Excited to have that back again in that segment to look forward to at the end of the show where we talk about the top performances from week 1. So stay tuned throughout. We're going to talk about all the games, but we're going to start right here at Spain Park High School with our game of the week between Spain Park and Hoover. We're only in week 2, but we've got one of the biggest rivalry games of the high school football season taking place right here at Spain Park High School on Friday night. The Jags going to welcome crosstown rival Hoover to town, and this is a game last year that Spain Park, for just the third time in school history, was able to win 39-37, a thrilling back-and-forth battle there a year ago. So a lot of emphasis on this game from both of these programs heading into this matchup. And Andrew, before I jump over to you for your thoughts going into this game, I've got to tell you about Wayne's Pest Control, who's a proud sponsor of the Spain Park Jaguars on this year's Shelby County High School Football Show. While the Spain Park Jaguars are playing defense against their opponent, Wayne's Pest Control is playing defense for your home. This football season, don't let mosquitoes, fleas, or ticks sideline your family's outdoor fun. Wayne's environmentally safe mosquito treatments will keep your yard clear, and our affordable Mosquito Plus program will also eliminate fleas and ticks. Protect your family and pets today and take a bite out of the great outdoors. For quality service and peace of mind, trust Wayne's Pest Control. Call 866-WAYNES-1 or visit callwaynes.com to learn more. So, Andrew, you look at Spain Park, they're going to want Wayne's Pest Control to come out here and take care of some things because they don't want these pesky Bucks coming in and picking up a win to get redemption. This is a game last year that was thrilling, exciting, all the way down to the wire out at the Hoover Met. You got to see that one. So what's the build-up going into this year's matchup?
Oh, it's completely different because of the fact that Spain Park won last year's matchup. Obviously, Spain Park has had a different mentality around its program in recent years, and Coach Vakakis said immediately after last year's win that he wanted this to be the start of a new era where they don't talk about the past and they talk about what they can do in the present, which is have a team that can beat Hoover, one of the top teams in the entire state. And certainly the Bucks were coming off of a down year in 2023. They got that win in 2024, did Spain Park. Now they come in 2025, and they get a Hoover team that looks really good and like a legitimate Class 7A state title contender. Held up admirably for a quarter or so against IMG on national television last week. Jonah Winston playing a very key part in that with his touchdown. But obviously, this is going to be a team that's looking forward to not just bounce back from that week 1 loss to IMG, but also get one up on their rivals. When you talk to Hoover, they are really frustrated that they lost this game last year, and they are more motivated than ever to beat Spain Park now that they are not overlooking them.
One area I want to start with is you look at this Hoover team, despite last week's loss, I mean, not a bad effort against arguably one of the best teams in the country in IMG Academy. Defensively, I thought they did some things well, and obviously you talked about Jonah Winston, what he was able to do on the offensive side of the football. This team, I think, across the state, the expectation is higher than it's been in a long time for Hoover, a team that's expected to be a powerhouse there in Class 7A. This year they've got the talent, they've got the experience, and now they've got redemption on their mind coming into this matchup. You look on the other side of it, Spain Park, a pretty strong showing in the opening, 48-21 win as they hit the road there last week to take on Sparkman. But what's this defense going to do? That's kind of the key question mark for me. We saw exactly what we expected to from Brock Bradley, spreading the ball around the yard yet again this year with a plethora of receivers, which really impressed me. But the run game was also impressive, and that's what stood out from an offensive standpoint last week. But the question marks to me revolve around the defense carrying over from last year into this year.
Yeah, I had 2 question marks coming into last week's game, and it would be if the run game would be able to keep up with what it was last year with Cowley and Shanks, and if the defense would be able to still be its solid self that was last year, and maybe even take a step forward towards becoming a truly elite unit. We saw one of those questions answered, and that was very clearly the run game, with the backs combining for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns, 200-yard rushers in McKissick and Thompson. A really, really, really good start for that behind a very talented offensive line. So great start for them in the run game, and they'll use that to diversify their offense and really continue that momentum from last year. But it's the defense, kind of like we saw last year in those playoff games against McGill and Russell County, really kind of let the foot off the gas a little bit after a decent early start, and then let Sparkman get back into the game after a really good 14-0 and then 27-7 start last week against Sparkman. Ended up being a 48-21 game with Sparkman scoring a few touchdowns. Obviously, credit to Spain Park for bearing down and getting the win in the end, but it does ask some questions of, if they can do that against Sparkman, what's it going to say about them against this Hoover team that you cannot give them any quarter or any way to give them any sort of way to attack you?
Well, and I think what it does is it sets up a game that's going to be very similar to what we saw last year. Back and forth battle. I think Brock Bradley's going to make some big plays with his arm to keep his team in the game. I think they're going to run the football well again, just based on what I saw last week, the balance they had running the football, which bodes well for what you've got up front on the offensive line as well. So my biggest question mark for Spain Park to win this game is, can the defense make plays when it needs to? Last year, that's what they were good at. Even though they would have a down game, they would make the play when they need to. That's my question mark going into this year. Do they have that same edge late in games to be able to overcome the adversity of maybe struggling a little bit, but then able to buckle down and make the plays when they need to? So, Andrew, what's your final thoughts on this game? Who do you think walks away with the win?
Well, I think last year Spain Park won by not only being the better team, but the tougher team.
Yep.
I think they had both of those going in their favor last year in this matchup. Now I think it's shifted a little bit. Now I think that Hoover is the better team just from what we've seen in the last couple of weeks. It's just going to be a question of if Spain Park will be able to fight hard enough and be able to overcome maybe some of those talent differences on the field. Right now, it's kind of a coin flip for me in that regard, because I never want to count out the Jags, and I never want to count out this culture that Vakakis has built, because this is a team that will fight for all 48 minutes and will go out there and tangle with some teams that they arguably might be a little bit less talented than, but can certainly outfight and outwork on the field. But right now, in that coin flip, I'm kind of leaning a little bit Hoover, but I do expect there to be a possibility that my mind changes throughout the week. So
yeah, we'll see.
Maybe follow up back with me on Friday at Spain Park.
Tune into the live show on Friday night, and we'll see if Andrew's changed his mind at all. I'm kind of right there on the fence as well. This is a game. Last year, I felt like Spain Park was the better team, and I thought Spain Park was going to have a really good year last year. They did just that. They won this game. This year, I think Spain Park is a really good football team, and I think they're going to have a really good season. But my expectation in the offseason is this is going to be a really, really good year for Hoover. I think that they are going to compete for the Region 3 championship. Thompson, I think, is head and heels above everyone when it comes to that region this year. So I expect Thompson to win it. But I do think Hoover is going to be the number 2 team in Region 3 this year. I just think they're so improved from where they were at this point a year ago that's ultimately what's going to make the difference. Spain Park's going to be a physical group. They're going to be strong on the offensive side of the football. But the question that I said just a few minutes ago, are they going to have that big defensive play late in a football game that can make the difference? I don't know yet, and that's what I want to see. If they win this game, I think it'll be because of that on Friday night. I think it's going to be just like last year, back and forth battle. I think you're going to see some explosive plays on both sides of the football, and ultimately it could come down to, kind of like it did last year, who has the ball last and who's going to make that last big play of the game, whether it is defensively or offensively. So make sure you make your way out here. The crosstown rivalry, Spain Park gets a little bit of action last year. They win for the 3rd time in school history, just the 2nd season ever that they've beaten Hoover. The last time those two wins, I believe back in 2015, if I remember correctly, in the same season. So they get back in the winning column last year. We'll see if they can make a winning streak, win their second in a row here against the Hoover Bucks. Going to be surefire fun here at Spain Park High School on Friday night, so make sure you make your way out for this big rivalry battle. Well, the Thompson Warriors a little slow out of the gate last week in their season opener, but they eventually got it going. A big win at home to kick off the season. One of the first teams we saw in action on Thursday night as they take down Carver Montgomery. A slow first half, but they were really able to work things out in that third quarter. That offense played extremely well as the two teams in the first half seemed to be kind of feeling each other out at that point. And now they jump forward 1-0. Looking like a state championship contending team once again. Now they get a top 25 national battle as they travel to the metro Atlanta area to take on Grayson this week. This is going to be a huge showdown between these two teams, and I think Thompson is prepared forever to compete in a game like this. Before we talk about this matchup, though, got to tell you about Wayne's Pest Control is going to be sponsoring the Thompson Warriors on the Shelby County High School football show. While the Thompson Warriors are playing defense against their opponent, Wayne's Pest Control is playing defense for your home. This football season, don't let mosquitoes, fleas, or ticks sideline your family's outdoor fun. Wayne's environmentally safe mosquito treatments will keep your yard clear, and their affordable Mosquito Plus program will also eliminate fleas and ticks. Protect your family and pets today and take a bite out of the great outdoors. For quality service and peace of mind, trust Wayne's Pest Control. Call 866-WAYNES-1 or visit callwaynes.com to learn more. Well, Andrew, this is a Thompson team that last week looked every bit the part of a state championship contender. Now they hit the road. Are they a national championship contender? We'll find out in a game like this because this is a Grayson team that I believe sits in the top 5 at this point. I don't know if Max Preps has updated their rankings this week or not at this point, but this is a Grayson team that's really good. This is a game that was a lot of fun last year. So what's the expectation between these two powerhouses going into this one?
Well, Max Preps has indeed updated its rankings. Some of the other national polls are a little bit more scattered on how they rank these two teams, but generally consensus top 25 teams. Grayson's still holding at number 5 after a 24-19 win over the North Carolina State champions Rayburn Gap out of North Georgia. So a really good win for them last week. And then you also have a really dominant win over Collins Hill that they did to start out the season. So they're 2-0 and looking very good in the process. Meanwhile, Thompson moving up 4 spots to that number 19 spot after that 37-6 win over Carver. And it was a win that was really a tale of two halves for Thompson. Earlier in the first half, Carver really succeeded with that quarterback run, had a very athletic backfield that Thompson couldn't quite keep up with, obviously allowing that one touchdown, but really limiting the damage to just that. A good job from them to limit the damage in that regard. And the offense just wasn't able to finish out plays and drives despite a really good scoring drive and a couple of really good plays, namely by Price Lewis to help extend some drives. But the second half, it looked like a light switch was flipped. Yep. It's a really big testament to this coaching staff and Mark Freeman's ability to make adjustments, but also this team for having the resilience and the ability to make those adjustments coming out of the locker room and just look like the team that we expected them to be coming into the season. Offense was clicking on all cylinders. Pass game looked absolutely incredible with a ton of different receivers getting the ball. Trent Seaborn having another very efficient night as well. And the defense played absolutely incredible. A bunch of turnovers on the night, I believe 4 total, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and Ami Moala just absolutely dominating up front for the Warriors. It was a really good, really complete performance that has me really encouraged going into a game like this.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this game last year, 15-14 game, overtime loss for Thompson, one of 3 one-point overtime losses last year. This year, I think Thompson's better than they were last year. I think early in the season, you see that depth at receiver. This passing game should be one of the best in the country, in my opinion, with Trent Seaborn at quarterback and what he's able to do. The running game a little bit slow out of the gate last week, but they really didn't have to use it much. Mm-hmm. They used it when they needed to, especially around the goal line. I think that's going to be a position that comes along as the season goes along. And same for the offensive line, going to continue to get better and better. But that defense and what they were able to do, they're replacing some key faces on that defensive side of the football. But last week they forced turnovers. They were able to get in the backfield. You mentioned Moala and what he was able to do running through offensive linemen to get to the quarterback. Cam Pritchett, same thing, was able to get in the backfield a good bit. This defense played lights-out football last week, as we've come to expect over the last several years. So I expect we're going to see much of the same in this one. I think it's going to be a similar game to last year, lower scoring, but you're going to have some big plays that ultimately make the difference. So, Andrew, 15-14, 1-point loss for Thompson last year. Do they get redemption on the road this year?
I think they definitely have the tools to continue to contend with Grayson, but it's really hard for me to see a reasonable path to victory just because of how good that Grayson has gotten within the past year. I think they used that result against Thompson last year and then just used that to springboard another state championship season from them, and they've just come flying out of the gate this year. Already beating the North Carolina State champs, beating a team that they lost to last year in Collins Hill. This is just a team that's clicking on all cylinders. 2 of the top 10 senior recruits out of the state of Georgia, with a 5-star linebacker in Tyler Atkinson and a 4-star quarterback in Travis Burgess. A couple other 4-stars laced on this team as well. This is a team that's about as loaded as Thompson and probably still has the edge. For me, I do think that Thompson has a great chance to contend within this one, but they need to consistently score to keep up with that defense, and they need to find ways to break through. I don't think they can afford a slow start this year, and they certainly can't afford a start they had last year in this game, where, if you remember, Grayson just went no huddle out of the gate and was really able to ask some big questions of this defense early on. I think this game ultimately ends up being close, but I think Grayson has the edge in the end. But if Thompson's able to get a win here, you need to start talking about this team as a finalist for the national title.
Yeah, this is a game that I think can go either way. We just talked about Spain Park Hoover being a similar situation. These are 2 powerhouse teams that both have depth, and they both have a variety of playmakers across the field. Thompson's better to me this year, just from what I've seen already, than they were at this point last year. They've got a game under their belt, which they didn't going into this game a season ago. I think Thompson's going to win it.
Okay.
I don't know what it is early in the season, but I really, really I think this is going to be the best Thompson team we've seen, which says a lot over what they've been able to do the last several years. So, Coach Freeman, now's your chance to point out the rat poison to the players, and for them to know that we're talking up the hype right now that means absolutely nothing to them. But at the end of the day, they've got the balance at receiver. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. That right there makes them dynamic enough. Then you throw in a running game that's going to get experience. You throw in an offensive line that's going to get experience, and a defense that's as dominant as they've been over the last several years, continuing to make plays. I think this is an offense that's built to go up against a physical defense. Last year, early in the season, there were just too many question marks, especially at the receiver position, that I didn't have the expectation of them making that big game-changing play. This year, I have that expectation. They've got the playmakers to make it happen in the passing game, and I think we're going to see them make some big-time plays. I think the Thompson Warriors pick up one of their biggest national wins in school history. So we'll see how it unfolds. They hit the road to Metro Atlanta this Friday, 5 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. So make sure you keep up with those updates and are following along as we will be as well. It's going to be a lot of fun out there at Grayson High School as the Thompson Warriors look to pick up a big top 5 nationally ranked win. Well, in addition to the 2 big games we just talked about, we've got one big county battle taking place this week, and I think a very important one, as it's the final week before region play kicks off. And Oak Mountain going to welcome Pelham to Herdmont Park, just down the road here from Spain Park High School, where we're filming this week's show. And it's going to be a big battle between these 2 teams. Oak Mountain sitting at 1-0, a 14-3 win over Briarwood to open the season. Also just down the road at Briarwood Christian School, very physical defensive battle there, offensive struggles at times between those 2. And then you go down the road to Pelham, just down 119. That was another physical battle and a defensive battle as Pelham falls to Pell City 22-14, but drastically improved from what we saw a season ago in their opener with Pell City. So a big battle here between these two to get some momentum going into region play. Before we talk about this game, we got two sponsors we want to tell you about in this segment, starting with our sponsor for the Oak Mountain Eagles on this year's Shelby County High School football show. And you've heard it probably throughout the show already, but Wayne's Pest Control sponsoring the Eagles. While the Oak Mountain Eagles are playing defense against their opponent, Wayne's Pest Control is playing defense for your home. This football season, don't let mosquitoes, fleas, or ticks sideline your family's outdoor fun. Wayne's environmentally safe mosquito treatments will keep your yard clear, and their affordable Mosquito Plus program will also eliminate fleas and ticks. Protect your family and pets today and take a bite out of the great outdoors. For quality service and peace of mind, trust Wayne's Pest Control. Call 866-WAYNES1 or visit callwaynes.com to learn more. And we've also got 3D Air Services back on board again this year. Big community supporters of local high school football programs, local schools, and obviously our show. Proud sponsors of the Pelham Panthers, and since 2005, 3D Air Services has proudly called Shelby County home. They're more than just your trusted HVAC company. They're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. From keeping your home comfortable year-round to sponsoring local schools and athletic programs, they're committed to making a difference in our community. Just ask your neighbor. Chances are they've already been there. As proud sponsors of the Pelham Panthers, 3D Air believes in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, values they carry with them to every job they do. 3D Air Services, your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable, one home at a time. So, Andrew, these two teams in Oak Mountain and Pelham both showed some promising signs in their opener. I know Pelham Falls, but I think improved from where they were at this point a year ago in that difficult season. And Oak Mountain defensively did everything they need to. The offense still going to have a little bit of improvement to make. Marty Myrick's aside, he ran the ball extremely well. But this is an important game, and I think these two teams a little bit closer this year than they might have been last year going into this matchup.
Absolutely, I would 100% say that. And last year was a fairly entertaining affair as well, so I think we could be seeing a very close game. But these are two teams that I think they need to take a step forward going into region play, and they're going to attack this week like that. We always hear these teams talking about how non-region play is that chance to fine-tune those things and get ready for region play. Well, now you got one more matchup to do so before region play starts next week, and what better to do that against a team who's looking to do the exact same thing as you. You look at these two teams, and they kind of are in similar but also different spots. You have Oak Mountain, who won the game last week, but kind of did just enough to do so. It was a Briarwood team that didn't really ask many questions of them, only 3 points on the board. So you look at that on the surface and say it's a fairly good defensive performance. But obviously Shane McComb, a former defensive guy in himself, was definitely laying into his team afterwards in our post-game interview, emphasizing tackling, emphasizing making plays on both ends of the ball. So I think this is going to be a team that's going to be motivated and ready to step up, frankly, because they need to. They need to use this game to refine some things and be able to become the most complete version of themselves, because you look at what these next few weeks are going to entail in region play, and we almost don't even need to say it because it's going to be a lot of challenges and a lot of things that this team is going to need to get right to face those opponents. And then you look at Pelham, where they definitely took a step forward compared to this matchup last year. It is a very, very good Pell City team that has the unfortunate pleasure of playing in a region with the likes of Mountain Brook Clay and Oxford. Yep. So it's definitely a team that I think is going to be a really good, really highly regarded team for that. But obviously, you look at Pelham. They struggled in this matchup last year, but they had a really good looking scoring drive. First off, got some great deep balls to Marcus Arnold before Tristan Rutledge punched it in. And the Pelham defense excelled at getting stops throughout. Obviously, you give up that initial 22-7 lead, and that's not ideal. But for a little over 2 quarters, you keep Pell City scoreless. And that really allowed them a chance to be able to get that other touchdown, get back into this game, and have a chance late in this one to really make some noise. So I think that's a really good encouraging sign for this Panthers team. They're just definitely going to need to take another step forward in this matchup.
I think the progression they made defensively in game and the adjustments they made was the exciting part. If you're a Pelham fan, that gives you some hope, not only going into this game, but a chance for this team to show improvement from what we saw last year. And last year in this game, a 38-20 loss to Oak Mountain, but they showed some flashes, some promising signs a year ago in this game. This year, I think you've got 2 solid defenses that are going to make this a physical battle, and I think that's going to be the key matchup to watch. Both these offenses have some potential with different playmakers. I don't know that they've got that balance across the field on that side of the ball to spread things out as much as they would like to. But I do think they've each got some playmakers that can make the plays that they need to have a chance to win the football game. But the defense is going to be what keeps them in it. And I think that's what makes this an entertaining football game. So, Andrew, at the end of the day, who do you think walks away with the win between these two?
Before this season, I probably would have picked Oak Mountain in this matchup solely because I really do believe that this passing game has a good bit of potential. And I really like this backfield, especially with Marty Myricks. We saw that last week. Once he was able to hit the edge, he was just off and running and really sparked some great scoring drives. That one scoring drive on offense from Oak Mountain, of course, the other one coming from that scoop and score early in the game. But I think this team is really going to need the pass game to step up in order to take that next step and really give me confidence picking them going forward. With Pelham right now, I think they're a little bit more of a complete offensive team. I really like this pass game with Dylan Smith. I think the run game with Tristan Rutledge is going to be able to have a chance to get going a little bit. And I think this team on offense is more complete and more talented than we saw last year, just with that year of development and with some new weapons on their side. I think Pelham's going to win this one in a very close one. To me, this is going to be a matchup where either one or both of these offenses unlock, and if neither of them do, it's just going to be another slugfest. So I think regardless, though, I think Pelham has a chance to win this one.
So second week in a row that Oak Mountain and the players and the team's going to have some bulletin board material from Andrew Simonson here to post in the locker room. So we'll see if that motivates them again for another week to pick up a 2-0 start. To me, and it's a lose-lose situation because you're going to, picking against Pelham's the same thing. You're going to hear about it from them as well. But for me, I think what I saw last week, Briarwood's defense, a really good defensive football team, and physical. And that's what they faced a week ago with this Oak Mountain offense. I think they were easing into the season from an offensive standpoint when you look at Oak Mountain as well. Charlie Vaccarella is a young kid who's got a huge arm. He's just a little bit undersized right now, and so getting him comfortable and eased into the season was a key part for them. To me, last week, I think this week you may see a little bit more from the passing game, but regardless, you got Marty Myricks. To me, he's arguably the best running back in the county this year. If he's got that offensive line playing well, he's going to have success. Pair that with the defense. A good run game with a physical defense, that typically pairs well. I think Oak Mountain has just enough, again, to pick up a win in this one. I think, like we've talked about really throughout the show, I think we're going to see a physical defensive battle still early in the season. Don't want to give away too much before region play. So I think you're going to see a lower scoring game, much lower than the 38-20 game last year, and I think Oak Mountain's going to squeeze one out here in possibly a 1, maybe 2 possession game. So it should be a lot of fun. Good rivalry battle between these two, Oak Mountain and Pelham, down at Herdmont Park. We'll see who walks away with the victory. We're going to be a fun battle there between the Eagles and the Panthers. The only team that didn't kick off their season, the Helena Huskies, last week, they do open the season this week on their home field as they take on McAdory. Second year in a row that they get a big matchup like this to get the season going, and it's going to be a fun battle here. This is a McAdory team that I think is going to be improved throughout this season. I think they're going to be a strong football team, and I think Helena's got the ability to be very successful this year as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this matchup unfold on Friday night. Before we talk about this game, got to tell you about one of our new sponsors on this year's Shelby County High School football show, and that's Oak Mountain Hearing. If you're struggling with your hearing, tinnitus, whatever it may be, hearing aids, hearing loss, they're going to take good care of you there at Oak Mountain Hearing no matter what the issue is. Give them a call, get a consultation, and get that set up and see what you can get figured out. But, yeah, if you're struggling with your hearing, if you're needing hearing aids, the perfect place to help you out. That's Oak Mountain Hearing. Call or text 205-728-1690. Again, 205-728-1690, and Oak Mountain Hearing will be there to take care of you. So, Andrew, big game coming up this week as Helena looks to kick off the season with some confidence. A 29-28 win last year in this one. I think this one's set up to be another exciting game. McAdory, a season ago, had a game under their belt going into this matchup. They beat Pleasant Grove 38-35. This year, again, a game under their belt, they beat Pleasant Grove 57-7. So this McAdory team looks to be improved from where they were last year, and I think Helena's going to be in that same boat too.
Yeah, I got a little bit of scouting for this one done unintentionally. So I woke up on Saturday morning, turned on my TV, just happened to see a Friday Night Rivals replay of McAdory Pleasant Grove. Wanted to support my guy Darrell Fuquay for Pleasant Grove. So heck, why not? I'll watch the debut. First thing I noticed out of the gate, McAdory's run game, incredible. Yep. They ran all over Pleasant Grove from the start, and they left no way to respond, thus setting up the 57-7 result. They're going to have to stop Kawan Johnson. They're going to have to stop this run game in order to be able to have a really good shot to win this game. But that said, I do think Helena has the firepower to keep up with this team, even though this offense looks really, really deadly, and the defense is also looking really good as well. I think they're going to ask some questions of this defensive line, particularly because it is a little bit undersized, and Helena's defensive line is going to have to use their speed to get into the backfield. But Helena's second level is about as good as anyone. You look at Jonathan Roberto, DJ Williams, Lane Harris in that linebacker room. It's a really good, really complete unit that's going to be able to make some plays. So I think that second level is going to be key to them. And that entire front seven is going to be absolutely key in eliminating plays. But then you look at this offense, and I think it's going to be about as complete as we saw last year. You got another dual-headed monster in Dom Santiago and Jacoby Stoudemire behind an offensive line that's definitely going to be a little bit of a work in progress, but will always improve over the course of the season. You always know a big staple of Ricky Busby's teams is player development, and this team is going to get better over the course of the season in many regards.
Well, and I was just going to say, do you feel like from a quarterback position as well, this may be the best shape Helena's been in, years?
Well, for one, you've got a second-year starter, which puts you leagues above where you were in the last few years. A lot of senior starters in the last few years. You look at guys like Carson Acker, Llewellyn as well. But now you have Nate Ferguson, and a guy who's really developed really well, has a lot of arm strength, is definitely maturing into the game and getting a lot of IQ within this system. And you surround them with a few weapons, guys like Chris Brown. Obviously, you don't have that big guy like Torrey Ward that you have last year, but this is a team that I think is going to be really well equipped to sling the ball around the yard. And you complement that with a run game, which obviously when you ask Helena, that's going to be their bread and butter. That's going to be what they go to first. But you complement that with a really good pass game, and it's a Helena team that can really do a lot of things on offense. I think this is going to be a Helena team that really, despite having a few pieces gone from last year, is going to stack up really well in terms of where they were in previous seasons.
Yeah, my big question mark, like you said, the receiver position. If they've got a receiver, if they've got two even better, then they can be really, really good. But if they've got one receiver who can step up, this team's going to be a very dangerous team throughout the year. So to me, that's what I'll be watching out for. I think the defense is going to be talented. They got to stay healthy. But I think the defense is going to be very talented. They can run the football offensively, and they've got a quarterback who can throw or run the football whenever needed. So to me, I want to see the receiver step up. I want to see them stay healthy, but how they handle a test, their first game of the season, whereas McAdory's got a game under their belt. So, Andrew, where do you see this game going?
It's going to be a shootout. You look at these two teams, especially these two running games, it's going to be a really big run-focused, offensive-focused game out here. But I think Helena's got the firepower to get a little bit of an edge on this. We saw this one last year. It's a Helena team that's always coached to be pretty gritty, pretty resilient, and a team that can stack up against just about anybody. We saw that throughout the year with how close they played Spain Park and some of those other teams throughout their schedule. And I think this is going to be a team like that regard last year, where they're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Giants. And even if they don't get a win, they're going to look really competitive doing so. That said, I think Helena's going to get the win in a close one this year. It's probably a coin flip again this year, kind of like last year's one-point game. But I think the Huskies do enough, get that one last drive over the line, and get that victory.
Yeah, this is a game that when I look at it, I'm going to give Helena the bulletin board material like you just gave Oak Mountain the bulletin board material a minute ago. McAdory, I've seen their improvement. We've seen what they've done to improve this year. They've got a game under their belt. Helena, I think, is going to be better. I think maybe just a little bit better than what they were last year, which they were a really good football team last year, but I hadn't seen it yet. So I just need to see it to really believe that they're going to be on that same level as they were a season ago or a step better, whereas we've already seen that from McAdory. So that's my big hesitation right now. I think they've got the playmakers on both sides of the ball to make it happen, but I really want to see a receiver step up. To me, that's going to tell me how far this Helena football team can go in 2025. So a big opportunity for them to really prove themselves, get a good win under their belt going into region play. If they can win this one, I think they can compete for a region championship this year here in Class 6A. So a big opportunity for the Helena Huskies to get that win under their belt in Game 1. A nice season-opening 51-27 win for the Chelsea Hornets last week, and now they hit the road to take on Wetumpka. Going to be a little bit more of a challenge this week for them. Last week they take down Charles Henderson to open up the season. The offense looked impressive. I was very impressed with how well the offense played. In particular, I think the three-quarterback system worked, and I think the run game, which we expected to be good, worked for them as well. So this week I'll be intrigued to see how that offense travels to take on a little bit tougher of an opponent in Wetumpka. Defensively, hit or miss at times. They played well at times, then they would give up some big plays, and then they would start playing well again. So I'll be intrigued to see if they can get a little bit more consistent on the defensive side of the ball. But, Andrew, what are the expectations for the Hornets going into this matchup as they hit the road to take on Wetumpka?
Well, this is a really good Wetumpka team. They got a 36-19 win over Beauregard last week, and their only regular season losses were to top teams that were in the top 10 at one point in the season in Chelsea, Russell County, and Pike Road. So this is a team that, while it's kind of been a step behind some of the top 10 teams, this is still a really good, really contending team that, especially when you go down to Wetumpka to play them, I think is going to be a very interesting matchup for the Hornets. I think both of these teams are looking better than they were a year ago, and you especially look at the backfield and that offensive line for Chelsea. You enable 5 different rushers to score touchdowns, and you especially get big games out of Chase Malone and Morgan Barnes. It's everything that we thought they were going to be. It's another run-focused, run-heavy team, but they're able to do so really well, and it's really hard to stop a really good run-dominant team.
Yeah.
And we've seen that play out for Chelsea. We definitely saw that play out last week. And I think the passing game is definitely working itself out. You saw both some moments out of Strunk and Probst, and Picklesheimer kind of working himself into those packages with this frame as well. And you especially look at Strunk leading that 3-play scoring drive to start the game. Just a really good,
impressive.
really efficient start that really showed some of that explosivity that I think Chelsea needs to take the next step on offense. But like you said, it's that defense that really has me concerned going into this week. Especially with those plays on the outside. You gave up 2 85-plus yard touchdowns in the second half. Now, granted, obviously, they'd established a pretty big lead ahead of that. But you look at some of the teams coming up on the stretch, and they're not offenses that you'll want to let up the gas on. So I think you could have some more difficulty against some pass-happy teams that can go for all 48 minutes. And I think Wetumpka will be a little bit more equipped to do so. So I really want to see how they can face off against a team like that.
Yeah, my biggest concerns going into this game, the defense, how well they play from a consistent standpoint there. Because like you said, they've got to be consistent. You can't let up the gas, especially once you get into region play, no matter how big of a lead you have. And I think that was part of it. Game 1, you get a big lead. It's easy to get a little bit complacent and let a team start to exploit you a little bit from a big play standpoint. So I think they'll improve from that standpoint. I think they've got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the football, but definitely have to be consistent there. And then, do they continue the Hugh Freeze approach of 3 different quarterbacks from their season opener? If you don't know, that's been a big joke with Hugh Freeze saying that 3 quarterbacks may be playing in their season opener this Friday night against Baylor, despite having who everybody thinks is a number 1 starter there. Chelsea's in a different situation. They got 3 guys I think that they trust and believe in that really can make a lot of big-time plays. And so I'll be intrigued to see if that continues. It worked. I was very surprised. It worked in Game 1. So do they continue that? I think they're going to. I think you'll at least see 2, if not all 3, going into this matchup. But it's a more challenging opponent, and how do they handle that adversity in this one?
Definitely. You're going to see the quarterback room start to develop a little bit more. I think that's going to happen over the course of the season. Whether they stick to that approach or not remains to be seen. But like you said, I do think they have some really good options on their hands. And that's kind of what's made this decision a little bit difficult, because while they haven't really separated themselves out, it's not for a lack of trying, because I think all these quarterbacks have something really good about them that can make this team better. I think overall, like you said, it's going to be about the defense. But knowing Coach Cassidy, knowing defensive coordinator Scott Lowry, they're going to get these guys right. They're going to drill into these guys that last week's performance was unacceptable in some regards and that they need to be better going into region play after this week. But I do believe that the run game is just going to be too much. I think that we saw it last week, how much it can pave the way for a dominant victory. I really do believe that they're going to have success in that regard this week. And until it fails, I'm just going to keep betting on that Chelsea backfield. So I'm going to go with the Hornets.
That's kind of where I go. This is probably the game I'm most torn on.
Okay.
We've got some difficult games. I mean, literally every game we've talked about to this point, I think could be a coin flip and go either way. This one I'm the most torn on because we're seeing Chelsea against a team that's probably as similar as anybody they'll face this year to their talent level, and I think it's going to be a really good football game. But I could also see either of these teams pulling away at the end of the night. So I think whoever has the better week of practice, the better game plan, and better focus is going to be better off going into this game. But like you said, that run game of Chelsea, the physical toll it takes on you, and that defense as an opponent, I think that's going to be the difference maker at the end of the night. You got a guy in Chase Malone who can wear you down, but they can also keep him fresh, and he can be fresh in the second half because of the depth that they have at that position. And when you've got a physical bruising back like that that's pounding the ball again and again in the second half at you, that's a tough thing to take, especially early in the season and a game under their belts now. We'll see how Wetumpka is able to handle that, but I think that Chelsea run game, like you, is the difference maker at the end of the night. So Chelsea last year had that fast start, a great start to the season a year ago. We'll see if for the second year in a row they can get off to that 2-0 start. A slow start to the season for the Calera Eagles as they fell behind 21-0 to Northridge last week, ultimately end up losing that game 41-21, and now they get a tough matchup this week as they welcome Central-Tuscaloosa to town, a team that's coming off a big 45-13 win over 7A Tuscaloosa County. The second year in a row that Central-Tuscaloosa is coming in with a big rivalry win over Tuscaloosa County, a 7A team. And they also won this game against Calera last year, 47-21. So, Andrew, what was the takeaway from Calera last week, and what improvements do we need to see if they want to make up what was a 26-point differential in last year's game with Central-Tuscaloosa?
Well, there were a lot of highs and lows in last week's 41-21 loss to Northridge. Let's start with the lows because, frankly, that's how the game started. 3 touchdowns in the first 15 minutes from Northridge, and then you also have 3 interceptions from the offense as a whole. So it was really a day where a lot of big plays and a lot of turnovers cost this team. But there's really some positives that you got to look at from this team, especially over the course as the game went on. You outscore Northridge 21-20 down the stretch after giving up those 3 touchdowns. You get 2 touchdowns from a receiver in Caden Specs, who really stepped up in a big regard. But to me, I think it shows a lot of the concerns I had about this team going into the season. You got to play cleaner on offense, and you got to prevent the big plays on defense. Because if you give up too many of those game-changing plays on either side of the ball, you really get out of system, and you don't really have much of a leg to stand on. I think this team is really talented, and it has the athletes and the playmakers to make some noise over the course of the season, but you got to have a good foundation to go off of.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is, what is that foundation going to be? And you look at the way they started last week, falling into a 21-0 hole, played well after that, 21-20. They outscored Northridge the rest of the way, but you can't fall behind your opponents that fast and that early in a football game, especially as you move into region play and the opportunities you're going to have there. So the question mark for me coming into the season, how is the quarterback position going to play? And how improved could this defense be? I thought the quarterback position not bad last week. I think offensively they showed some progress. I don't think it's going to be as much as a fall-off as maybe we expected from A.J. Johnson. But defensively, while they were able to play a little bit better after that 21-0 hole that they fell into, that still seems to be a big question mark. And they're going to have to show some big improvements there against the Tuscaloosa County team that just scored 45. Central-Tuscaloosa team.
Yeah, these Falcons are really good, and they're going to be in the mix this year in 6A. They were a borderline playoff team last year, but DeMario Pippin has this program in an incredible spot compared to where it was a few years ago. So that's why I kind of have the Falcons in this matchup. I think they've got a lot of explosivity and a lot of really good weapons on their side to really give themselves the edge in this matchup, especially if they're able to exploit some of those things that bit Calera last week. But I do really like this Eagles team still. I think the character and the culture is there. You showed that in the fight to the end. And I think this team kind of knows going now what some of those things are they've got to work on. It's just a matter of translating those over onto the field and getting this team to a position to where it can show its athleticism, it can show its playmaking ability, and start to become the team that what I think is a really good playoff contender this year.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about a team that fights to the finish. They did that last year too. And that's what can be special about this team is if they can get off to fast starts, they can play well in the second half of football games. So to me, that's what this game boils down to. I think Central-Tuscaloosa is going to win, but how close this game is going to be and if Calera has a chance all boils down to how fast of a start do you have on the defensive side of the football. If they can come out and be physical and set a tone there early in the football game, they're going to have a chance to win this game in the second half, but if they don't, they're going to create an early hole that they're going to have to dig out of again with that offense. And that's not what they're built for at this point in the season. They need to get off to a physical and fast approach on the defensive side of the ball to give their offense a leg up and try to build a little bit of a lead at some point. So if they can do that, they're going to have success. But right now, we got to see that defense start fast for them to have a chance to win a football game. So we'll see how that unfolds there on their home field this Friday night as the Calera Eagles welcome Central-Tuscaloosa to town. Well, there's no easy way around it. It was a struggle for the Briarwood offense in week one as they fall 14-3 to Oak Mountain to open the season, but nothing comes at a better time than this matchup they're about to face on Friday night. Big rivalry battle the week before region play to get the juices flowing as they welcome Homewood to town. This is going to be a big opportunity for this Briarwood team to gain some momentum as they go into a very challenging start with their most difficult region games early in region play. Before we talk about this game, got to tell you about 3D Air Services sponsoring the Briarwood Lions this season. Since 2005, 3D Air Services has proudly called Shelby County home. They're more than just your trusted HVAC company. They're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. From keeping your home comfortable year-round to sponsoring local schools and athletic programs, they are committed to making a difference in our community. Just ask your neighbor. Chances are they've already been there. As proud sponsors of the Briarwood Lions, 3D Air believes in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, values they carry with them in every job they do. 3D Air Services, your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable one home at a time. So, Andrew, this is a Homewood team that's coming off a big win, rivalry battle against the John Carroll team that has some talent to replace there. A lot of question marks for that team, but Homewood did what they needed to. A 51-7 win. Meanwhile, Briarwood 14-3 loss to Oak Mountain. The defense played great football. They're going to be a very good defensive football team this year, just like they were last year. But again, the struggles early in the season are on the offensive side of the football. So what are the answers for that Briarwood offense to be able to compete with the Homewood team that looked really good in week one?
Well, I'm just going to go with Matthew Forrester's answer because I think he said it just about better than I could, because this team just needs playmakers straight up. Whether it comes from the run game or the pass game, they need some playmakers because you only post 3 points, and that comes from your opening scoring drive, where it showed a lot of the symptoms of this team where they can get really far and they can get into the red zone, but who's going to be that guy to push them over the top and get them into the end zone or get them into a better field goal position? Because you saw this team suffer turnover on downs after turnover on downs down the stretch because they were trying to stretch these things into scoring drives and make up those 2 touchdowns that Oak Mountain scored. And it was frankly a pretty low bar that Oak Mountain set. I do think that Oak Mountain obviously had a pretty good defensive approach. I think Forrester definitely harped on that regard in our post-game press conference after the game. But I do think that can't be a week-by-week result because you have a Homewood team coming off of 5 touchdowns from Caleb Carson, 2 sacks and a pick on defense. It was really a complete performance from Homewood. And like you said, say what you want to about John Carroll. It is a step below, but this is a Homewood team that looks really dangerous once again.
And when you look at what Briarwood did last week, the defense played outstanding football. Drive 1 for the offense was actually really good. I mean, they marched right down the field, and I can't remember if it was a penalty or whatnot, but set them back a little bit and then had to kick a field goal and settle for a field goal early in that game. They got to figure out what worked well in Drive 1 in that game because the rest of the night, it just wasn't there. Their defense is there. This is the kind of game against Homewood, you really want to go out and just make it an ugly defensive slugfest and a game that ends 10-7 or 13-10 or something like that. They lose this one 28-7 last year, and the defense actually played good, but they were on the field the entire game and eventually that caught up with them, and that's why Homewood was able to get 28 on the board. This year, defense is going to be on the field a whole lot again this year, so they're going to have to find a way offensively to sustain some drives like they did on drive one last week.
And I'm going to tell you one of the things that worked well that first drive, Jackson Ryer and Eli Thompson. That run game was looking really good, and they were able to spread the ball out between those two backs and get some good yardage on the ground. Obviously, the pass game isn't quite what we've seen it in past seasons, that being a high standard with Christopher Vizina, but I still think that's developing over the course of the year, and you're going to have to see guys like Charles Dedman, Dane Whitehead, Tram Walker really step up over the course of the season to be those playmakers, kind of like you mentioned. But you have a really solid run game once again that I think is going to be kind of the foundation of this team once again. It's obviously a Briarwood team that has an identity very similar to previous years, so I think that gives Forrester a leg up in that regard, and that he kind of knows what he's working with. But this is going to have to be a team that steps up, gets those consistent first downs, and more importantly, gets into the end zone. Because, like you said, the defense looks really good. Garrett Witherington had a great night up front. I think this front seven looks incredible, and you've got a really solid secondary with guys like Sam Canali making some plays as well. So it's a team with a really good foundation, but now you got to build up on that, build some fancy things that can get you over the line to victory. Right now, I think Homewood's more complete in that regard, more explosive. They have the edge for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think Homewood's going to walk away with the win in this one. I think Briarwood's going to do everything they can defensively to make this a low-scoring battle, and I think that's what we're going to see. It's what you expect when these two get together. But I do think Homewood can still edge into the 20s here, and I think Briarwood getting 14 points is going to be a good night for them. So for that reason, I think Homewood's going to have the advantage and walk away with the win in this one. Unless Briarwood can find some ways to get some defensive scores, a blocked punt, something along those lines, that could shift some things in their favor, give them some short fields to work with, and then the offense be able to go to work from that point. So we'll see if the offense can make an improvement from week 1 to week 2. I think the defense gives them a chance, but ultimately Homewood walks away with the win. The Shelby County Wildcats start the season with another win. They're 1-0 for the second year in a row, taking down Lincoln 27-14. And Andrew, it wasn't quite the offensive performance that we expected, but as we talked about last week, one of the big keys for me for the Wildcats to have success again this year was going to be to see the defense play as well as it did last year. They come out, they give up just 14 points, and now they're taking on a Holtville team that lost its opener to a 3A Trinity team 15-14. So not a lot of points scored in that one. You got to expect that it's going to be another good week for Shelby County's defense.
Yeah, absolutely. The best teams know how to win ugly, and I think Shelby County certainly showed that in that regard. Still a lot of things to clean up from this team overall. Obviously, you compare it to last year, and it is kind of apples to oranges because you can't really expect a big performance like that, kind of like we said last week on the show. But still, you get 28 points overall on the board, a really good night from the run game overall. You bounce that out across Devin Alexander, Tyson Duncan, and Noah Trenholm. But then you also have a few decent moments in the pass game. I know Ryan Sipes only went 3 for 8 overall, but a couple of really good passes as Dominic Woods mixed in there. And it's a team that I think is starting to find a little bit more of its offensive identity and really settling into that run-based approach that we saw work so well last year. There's still a lot to clean up, like I said. There was a back-breaking defensive pass interference that eventually led to a touchdown, and then a couple of lengthy drives that ended up empty, so only 261 yards of total offense on the night. They've been better than that last season, and I think this coaching staff knows that. I think these players know that as well. So I expect Ellison and his staff to really stress to this team that you can be as good as you are last year. You've just got to show that on the field and really make those steps and play consistently in that regard against these teams like Holtville.
And speaking of last year, 31-14 win in this game last year. We just talked about what Holtville did in week 1, struggling offensively with just 14 points, and Shelby County giving up just 14 points. So defensively, you expect Shelby County is going to be enough here to pick up a win.
I do, yeah. And credit to Trinity. They're a really, really good 3A team that was a title contender last year, and obviously a private school that's one of the stronger in that area in Montgomery. But I do really think that with Holtville, it's kind of a team that's historically struggled. They went 4-7 last year and somehow made the playoffs out of that. But this was a matchup that Shelby County was able to have its way in last year. It's a little bit of a step up compared to a Lincoln team, although that's not really saying much. But I do believe that this is a matchup where Shelby County is going to let its defense lead the way, its run game lead the way, and be able to build off of its strengths to have another really good week going into region play. Obviously, you got a tricky matchup against Sipsey Valley on the horizon, so you're going to have to be good and ready for that. So I really expect this team to use this week of practice and this week of the game to drill in those fine details, those things that can really take them over the top into being the team that I think and what many think that they can be.
And I think the offense takes a step forward this week as well. To me, it's all up here. It's all mental for Shelby County right now, especially on that offensive side of the football. You can't lose a game like this, and that all comes with focus. You got to keep that momentum going in the right direction heading in to region play. I think defensively they've got plenty to be able to win this game. Offensively, they take a step forward from where they were last week. So I think for the second year in a row, they take down Holtville. Also think for the second year in a row, the Shelby County Wildcats are off to a 2-0 start. Not quite the offensive performance that the Montevallo Bulldogs were hoping for, but they do pick up a season-opening win last week over Tarrant, 14-6, and a great showing from that defense to be able to pick up a win. We do expect the offense to take some strides, just a lot of playmakers that they're having to replace on that side of the football, so we knew that would be a question mark for them coming into the season. Now this week, a great opportunity for them as they take on Sylacauga, and this would be a big boost for this team if they could pick up a win going into region play against a team like Sylacauga. Before we talk about this matchup, though, we got to talk about Montevallo Main Street, who's a proud sponsor of the Montevallo Bulldogs on this season's Shelby County High School football show. And whether it's a Friday night lights or a quiet Saturday stroll, there's always something special happening on Montevallo Main Street, from unique shops and local dining to community traditions and small-town charm. It's the kind of place where neighbors gather and Bulldogs pride runs deep. Make downtown part of your routine before the game, after the game, and all year round. And don't forget about the upcoming Tinglewood Festival in the city of Montevallo as well. Saturday, September 6th at Orr Park, a celebration of art, wood carving, live music, and local flavor coming up on Saturday, September 6th. One of the best festivals all year round right here in Shelby County. So, Andrew, take us through this game. A big opportunity for Montevallo. We saw the struggles offensively last week against a Tarrant team that we expected them to pull away from a little bit more. Now going to be a tough matchup against Sylacauga.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely some positives from this team. And I think there's a lot of what I expected going into the season of the run game continuing to be a strength, because the offensive line, really solid, really core group with Kyler Mitchell and AJ Gazar. A lot of really good veteran pieces on that are going to start paving the way for this team. And you got a guy in Caleb Merriweather who really seems to be the next man up in the backfield in that regard. 153 carries on 153 yards on 20 carries, I should say. 7.65 yards per carry. That's always a really good recipe for success when you're averaging nearly a first down a run. So I really do think that the run game provides a solid foundation for them. And then you have a couple of really good defensive performances as well. Jackson Holson back with 11 tackles. Buck Ross on both ends of the field. He has that receiving touchdown along with 5 tackles and a couple of pass breakups. And you prevented Tarrant from scoring on the offense all game with that one score coming late off of that special teams thing. But now you have an opponent who's a little bit of a step up, although I will say not as much of a step up as they have been in the past. You obviously saw them make the playoffs 10 straight years from 2012 to 2021. This is not that same team. This is a team that just beat Central-Tuscaloosa 44-22, a Central-Tuscaloosa team that went 1-9 in 2A last year. And it's a Sylacauga team that was just 4-6 last year. So a massive fall off from the years prior. So it's a little bit closer of a matchup than it has been, or would have been, I should say, in the years past. And it was a little bit of a close matchup last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Montevallo can do to get the edge in this one.
Yeah, 2 offenses going into this game that averaged 15.8 and 17.9 points per game last year. Mm-hmm. So offense not a strong suit a year ago. Early in the season, we do see a little bit of positive on the offensive side for Sylacauga, 44 points in that 44-22 win over Central-Tuscaloosa. But that's a team that's a 2A team, finished 1-9 last year. Mm-hmm. So not the most strong competitor to start your season with. That said, this is a Montevallo team that's just got to show some progress on the offensive side if they want to win.
Exactly, and it needs to happen in the pass game as well. Obviously, Jordan McAdory still starting out in his quarterback journey, but he has a few playmakers around him that can kind of step up and really make some difference in that regard. It's just going to need to be a complete offensive performance for this team to make some noise down the stretch. And I do really believe that as the competition improves, the rest of this team is going to have to improve as well. You use a game like that against Tarrant as the baseline, and then you use that to improve. Obviously, it can't be the highlight of your season like it was last year. You got to show some fight down the stretch in order to be able to post some wins and post improvement on last year overall. I think overall, the run game will pace the offense as McAdory develops, but this team is going to go as far as the defense allows them to. I think the defense was good overall for Montevallo, but they gave up some yardage. I think that could be a little bit of a hindrance this week against a Sylacauga team that was able to move the ball around a little bit last week. So I think Sylacauga has the edge in that regard going up against this Montevallo defense. But if this Montevallo defense lives up to the standards that Garrett Langer has set back when this team was down in 4A, I think this team is going to post the improvements that they need to in order to have a chance to win this. But like you said, it's going to be the offense that takes this team over the top as well.
Yeah, I think right now they have too many question marks from an offensive standpoint to win this one. Last year, a tight game, 15-7. Sylacauga wins that one. So a defensive battle last year. I think it's going to be a defensive battle again this year, which means it could go either way. Whoever has the ball last is going to have a chance to win the game or tie the game. But ultimately, you got to have faith in the offense making a big play to be able to win the game. And I think that's where I still have the question marks at this point in the season. I think they're going to continue to get better as the season goes along on the offensive side. But right now, they've got to prove that for us to be able to pick up that win. So we'll see what happens in this one. Good opportunity. If they can win it, 2-0 start, they're a step ahead of where they were last year, and it's a team that goes into region play with a lot of confidence. So good opportunity ahead for the Montevallo Bulldogs. We knew the Vincent Yellow Jackets would have some growing pains with so many new faces on both sides of the ball, but a tough 18-8 loss to open the season to Winterboro last week, and now they're searching for answers early in the season. The defense played well enough to win that football game, Andrew, but offensively a slow start to the season, and now they're going to take on a BB Comer team. That was a tight battle last year as well. A good opportunity for them to get some confidence, but they're going to have to show some improvements to be able to pick up a win.
Yeah, and I'm going to qualify this by saying I think the Winterboro loss is going to be viewed stronger at the end of the season. Based off of what I've seen from this team last year and based off of what I saw last week, I think this team is going to be a really good contender down at the 1A level. So I think the strength of that loss is going to be viewed a lot better as the year goes on. But it's the bottom line is that was not a performance that Vincent wanted. It was poor overall, especially to begin the half. By giving up 3 touchdowns, you put yourself in that big of a hole early on. Obviously, you play well down the stretch defensively, and you get that late touchdown. And then also you get a couple of blocked punts, which were huge. And then Jaden Roberts having that really big night, eclipsing 100 yards and scoring that lone touchdown. It was just a matter of finishing. And I think this team is going to start seeing a lot of improvements once it's able to do so. Kind of like we talked about with Briarwood early on, this team is really going to need guys to step up and be able to get this team over the line. I think this team has the playmakers still. I'm still really high on this team and its youngsters. But I think you've got to make sure that you prevent the turnovers like that fumbled snap. You got to make sure that you get into the end zone, not let drives end short of that, especially when you don't have a kicking game like you had in the previous seasons to make up for that, be able to get a field goal at least out of the drive. It's got to be things that you've got to work on throughout practice and take into this game. I think the good news is most of these things are things that will either be ironed out in practice or with game experience. You look at a guy like Lane Nims, where I think his game management will improve, and I think the center play will also improve as you start to fine-tune that in practice. But this is a really good opportunity right here against BB Comer, where you got to show some improvement.
Yeah, both these teams look to be a step behind where they were last year going into this matchup. So it's a good opportunity for both of them to get some confidence as they do move in to region play. I think the defense, once again, should be strong enough to win this one. They won this one 21-18 last year. I think it's going to be a similar style game, lower scoring, but you are playing a 3A team and a team that you know can compete with you. And so is that offense going to be able to make the plays it needs to? Is the running game going to get going, which we expect to be a strong part of this offense? Are they going to be able to make those adjustments to pick up a win in week 2?
Yeah, they have a really strong foundation with Jaden Roberts in the backfield. I really like this run game and what it can do overall from a playmaking perspective. It's going to be, can this pass game step up, make some plays at receiver, be able to make those plays that get them into the end zone, those big plays or even medium-sized plays that can just get them over the hump and get them to score some touchdowns. It's really hard to evaluate this BB Comer team, especially when you look at that loss. It's to Wadley, who was the 1A state champions last year. that Wadley Wishbone working to perfection in a 46-0 victory last week. So this is going to be a good measuring stick for both teams, I think. And it's a matchup where this was a really competitive matchup a few seasons ago, and then B.B. Comer kind of took that step ahead in 2023 and then took a little bit of a step back going into last year, making this matchup a little bit more competitive again. I think both these teams are going to come out motivated for this one, but I can't see Vincent repeating that performance 2 weeks in a row. I think Weatherford's going to get this team in a good spot. I think they're going to start cleaning up some things in practice, and I think in that regard, they're going to have a step forward on a B.B. Comer team that's probably going to be coming off a little bit of a low as well after that loss to Wadley.
Yeah, this is one, we talked about Chelsea Wetumpka being the game I was most torn on. This one's right up there. It's almost a tie with that game, just because I don't know enough about B.B. Comer at this point, and obviously the game you just talked about in week one. And Vincent, I don't think that's going to be indicative of their offense all year. I do think they'll at least take a step in the right direction this week, and I expect the defense to be pretty consistent throughout the year. So I think we're going to see a good defensive effort again, keep this game manageable, give them an opportunity to win, and I'm gonna lean in favor of Vincent right now. I don't feel confident in it yet, but this is a Vincent team with Weatherford and the experience he has as a coach. I think he's going to get them to bounce back on the offensive side, have a good game plan drawn up, and know that defense is going to give his team some opportunities here for that offense to make some big plays. So I think Vincent going to sneak out another tight contest, 21-18 last year. Expect a very similar outcome this year. Well, now we'll jump into the AISA and the ACSC. Two games to talk about this week as Cornerstone's going to host Snook and Coosa Valley. Big surprises from week one, going to play host to Southern Prep. Cornerstone, they opened the season with a 44-14 win last week. They take on a Snook team coming off a 40-12 loss. Got to feel good about Cornerstone starting 2-0. Going up against a team that was 0-9 last year. And Coosa Valley with the shocker last week, a 30-28 win over Springwood, a 9-3 Springwood team last year. Big step for this program. They now take on Southern Prep, who just lost to Cornerstone, 44-14. So strong chance we could see two 2-0 teams here out of the AISA, and two teams maybe competing for that 8-man state championship this year.
It's gonna be really interesting to see, and I think that Coosa Valley matchup this week is gonna definitely show what this team is really made of. Obviously, you look at Springwood. That was a huge benchmark for this team. See if they can compete against one of the top teams in the region, and you get a gritty win at the end. And I think there were a lot of positives overall from that team overall. 8 completions for 230 yards for Braylon Smalls and 3 touchdowns. An absolutely incredible performance from him overall in the pass game and the run game. They played really well in a close game down the stretch, which I think answered a lot of questions for me about this team. Since a couple of their wins last year were in more dominant affairs, more high-scoring affairs, they were able to get down and dirty and be able to win this game when needed. And then you look at a Southern Prep team that's still struggling. I think if play continues on both sides of the ball, they're going to get a big win, start 2-0, keep riding that little bit of momentum they had. They came off of a couple wins to end last season. Now they might get a couple wins to start this season, and now you've really got a program that finally has some really good momentum in that regard. Can't help but feel good for Coosa Valley, especially if they get a win this week. And then you look at Cornerstone. They answered a lot of questions that we had about them going into the season. So many unknowns for the season coming into for the Chargers. And then you get 372 yards on the ground between Jackson Moore and Malachi Adams, really surprising, with 92 yards and a touchdown on the offensive side, and then just continuing to have another incredible night on the defensive side. 12 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks and a pick 6 for him in that regard on the defensive side. He's going to continue to be a playmaker here as well. And while the pass game still looking pretty solid under McKnight, this is a team that is still kind of settling into its identity, but it's a really good identity. A defensive-first identity that really plays well and gets some turnovers and then can run the ball extremely well. Like I said earlier, and going into the season, I thought the foundations and the culture and the system for this team was really solid and was going to lead to a lot of continuity more than I think some people expected. I was proven right in that regard. And I definitely feel good about them going in against a winless Snook team that's won just 3 games since COVID. I like the Chargers big in this one.
Yeah, I missed your Coosa Valley pick. Who'd you go with there?
I'm going to go with Coosa Valley again.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Cornerstone easy. I think they're going to win. 2-0 start for them. Coosa Valley, maybe a little bit more of a challenge in that one, because how do they deal with the success that they saw in week one? They hadn't had to deal with that in a while. but I think they win. I think they start 2-0 as well. So 2 good opportunities here for both of these teams. That would be a big storyline. Maybe we get to the end of the season, and these are the 2 teams vying for a state championship in the 8-man level. Long way to go. That would be big strides for Coosa Valley, and obviously Cornerstone with what they have to replace. But early in the season, both these teams off to strong starts, and we both expect that they continue to 2-0 starts at the end of Friday night. That brings us to the return of our SCR Stars of the Week, one of our favorite segments every year as we honor the best performances from the week before. And week 1 of the season, we had some strong performances to open the season. And each of us is going to give our top 2 stars of the week, and then Andrew at the end is going to give you a rundown of some other honorable mention players as well. But we had 4 standout players, and Andrew, I want to hear about your 2 stars of the week first.
I'm going on the ground for me because it was a really strong week for a bunch of backfields around the county. But I want to start with Nick McKissick at Spain Park right here. He had 135 yards and 2 touchdowns for a team that really needed a running back to step up. He had a really good night. J.D. Thompson had a strong night with 134, but it was those 2 touchdowns that really put McKissick over the top for me. Being able to punch in those touchdowns gives him the star of the week for this team. Really interested to see how him and the backfield fares over the rest of the season, and especially in this matchup against Hoover. And then you got a guy in Marty Myricks who, by and large, was the Oak Mountain offense last week. You have 151 yards for him and a touchdown. The lone offensive touchdown for this team, a 26-yard rushing touchdown that really put a seal on the game, especially that drive where he was able to score, hit the ball off the edge, get those 2 big runs to spark that drive, and then finish it off with a big yardage touchdown. He looked really good, and I think he sets a big foundation and a big tone for this Oak Mountain team.
Yeah, he was that offense for Oak Mountain the other night. Love seeing Spain Park have a running back step up. Going to be a big opportunity for McKissick in that run game here against Hoover on Friday night. My 2 both coming from Thompson in a game we saw last Thursday night. Ami Moala was the standout player of the week for me just across the board. I think maybe one of the best players in the state. Currently committed to North Carolina. This is a guy that has the size, the physicality, the build. He looks like he should be playing at a place that's a little better than North Carolina. I know they got a new coach there in Bill Belichick that's going to create some waves and get some good recruits in there. Previous Oregon commit, now North Carolina. This is a kid, when you watch him play, he fits the bill of being somebody at a power SEC program. He had in the opener 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and a fumble recovery, but he was wreaking havoc on the offensive line all night for that Thompson defensive front, pushing guys out of the way. He created opportunities for other people. He created opportunities for himself. You'll see a video in our YouTube shorts this week as well where he just ran right over an offensive lineman to get a sack. So an impressive performance for him, and I think you're going to see a whole lot from him the rest of the way. He could turn into one of the big names in the state before the season's done. Price Lewis, the other guy on the offensive side, big performances across the board, good balance from that offense, especially at the receiver position. But Price Lewis, 6 receptions, 115 yards, had one incredible catch where he went up, high-pointed the ball, ripped it down over 2 defenders. A great pass from Trent Seaborn there as well, who had a big night with 230-plus yards throwing the football. But Price Lewis and what he brings to this offense, speedy guy that's going to open up a lot of space for some other playmakers on that Thompson offense this year in the passing game. So those are 4 stars. Andrew's 2, my 2. Andrew, I know we got some other performances you want to run through real quick.
Well, clearly not a star is my home state with the way that Alec just ripped on North Carolina there. But we do have a few honorable mentions to mention right about now. Mason McClure getting 2 touchdowns out of the 3 from Brock Bradley. Really good night for him, stepping up as one of the top receivers. I think him and Ken Arrigo, who had the other touchdown, are going to be absolutely incredible for this team as 2 really good receivers for this team. And then Chase Malone getting 120 yards out of the 303 from the Chelsea backfield overall. We could have given the backfield its own mention overall. I think Malone really does a good job of pacing this offense. And then another one of the leading rushers from this week came from Montevallo. Caleb Merriweather, as we mentioned earlier in the Bulldogs segment, had 153 yards off of 20 carries. Wasn't able to find the end zone on that regard, but he was able to have a really, really good night for the Bulldogs as well. And then one of the guys who got into double-digit tackles as well for the Bulldogs, Jackson Holson back. Going to have a lot more nights like that and help this Bulldogs defense really reach its true potential. And speaking of defenses already reaching their potential, you got to talk about Shelby County with 4 really good turnovers from the defense, a Wyatt Brasher fumble recovery, and then 3 interceptions. Andreas McGinnis, Ethan Hall, and Clayton Ellison all getting in that regard. And special teams coming in with a fumble recovery on the kickoff as well. So 5 turnovers from this team overall, 4 forced by the defense. Really good night from the Wildcats.
I was about to say, I lost count there for a second. So many turnovers forced. So, yeah, if they can play like that this week, going to have a really good chance at a win. But moving forward into region play, good chance that they're right back in the same shape they were last year competing for region championship. So some great performances. Week 1 of the season in the books. Week 2, we've got some even bigger matchups on tap. So expect if your name is called next week, especially in those top 4 names of our Stars of the Week, it's going to be well earned from week 2 of the season. So we'll talk about all those big names next week in our SCR Stars of the Week segment. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's Shelby County High School football show. We've got a huge week ahead. We're going to have the live Shelby County football pregame show on Friday night as we preview everything once again ahead of all the big games on location, 3 different locations this week. Last week you had Andrew and I out at Briarwood, Oak Mountain, and Tyler down the road at Chelsea. This week all 3 of us going to be at different destinations, so you get a little bit of a peek inside each of those environments. But Andrew, before we jump ahead, one last thing on our preview show here, and that's our bold prediction. So I know where I'm going to go in just a second, but what is your bold prediction for week 2 of the season?
I think Oak Mountain and Pelham combined for at least 50 points on offense.
Just aged about 30 years. I think I had a heart attack there. Woo, Lord.
I think both these offenses take enough of a step forward to get a few touchdowns on the board and make that one a little bit more entertaining than I think most people expect going into that one.
If you're not keeping track, they combined for 28 points last week, 14 from each of them. So, yes, big drastic improvement, steps in the right direction. So I like the optimism there. That would obviously be big for both of them. I know, joking matters aside, be huge for both of them if they can make that happen on the offensive side of the football this week going into region play. Sets both of them up for success down the road and competing for a playoff spot. Mine is actually something I think is going to happen. A lot of times these bold predictions, we go out on a limb. I think Thompson's going to win their matchup at Grayson this week. That would be their biggest win in program history from a national standpoint, as they would take down a top 5 team in Grayson. This is a Thompson team that's built for a game like this. They almost won it last year, 15-14 loss in overtime. The only thing they were missing was that dynamic passing game early in the season that got better and better as the season went along. This year it's there to start the season, and the defense is as strong as well. So, Andrew, closing thoughts from you as we close down the show.
I mean, we've talked about it multiple times throughout the show. This is going to be one of the most fun weeks overall. Obviously, a very important week in terms of figuring out a lot of things for these teams going into region play, but you're going to get a lot of entertaining matchups across the board. I know a few matchups last week kind of disappointed in some regards, but I do think this week across the board you're going to get a lot of close matchups, a lot of fun matchups, and stuff that we're going to be able to use to dissect these teams a lot better come next week's show.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun on Friday night. Can't wait for the pregame show live on location from all 3 sites. But a top 25 nationally ranked game, top 20 after the most updated rankings. Spain Park, Hoover, Oak Mountain, Pelham in a county battle. Helena opening the season. Briarwood, Homewood in a good rivalry. Just going to be a fun week across the board. This is what we live for. This is what's fun. We can't wait to see this one unfold. And it's the final week before region play when those matchups get more and more important as the season goes along. So, all these teams going to want to be clicking on all cylinders. We'll see you live on Friday night from our 3 games that we'll be covering. It's going to be a lot of fun then, so make sure you tune in on all the platforms, X, YouTube, and Facebook for the Shelby County pregame show on Friday night. Alongside Andrew Simonson, I am Alec Etheridge, and we'll see you in a few days.